At my grandfather's will reading, my brother laughed so hard he cried. 11 weeks later, he was paying me rent to live in his own house. And if you leave before you hear what his arrogance cost him, down to the dollar, none of this will make sense. Because on the night this story really begins, I was standing in a basement I had no right to be in, at 2:14 in the morning, with brick dust in my teeth and a sledgehammer in my hands, breaking open a wall my grandfather built at 84 years old, with his own arthritic hands. Here's what you need to hold on to. My grandfather left my 3 siblings $2.3 million and 4 properties. He left me a single manila envelope. Inside was a letter written 2 years before he died, that quoted, word for word, the exact sentence my brother would say to humiliate me at the reading. He predicted it, 2 years early. To the syllable. How does a dead man do that? It all comes down to 3 things: a brick wall, a 1963 $50, and a broken pocket watch I pulled out of a dumpster in the rain. Everything I'm about to tell you comes back later, especially the watch. For 6 years, I was the one, not the favorite, not the golden child, the one who shows up. When Grandpa Eli had his stroke, I was 31, working as a bookkeeper, and within a month, I'd moved into the spare room of his old brick house on Corbin Street. I did the pills, the showers, the 3 a.m. falls. 312 Sundays, I made him eggs and burnt toast, because he insisted burnt was correct, and everyone else was a coward. My siblings had a different system. Marcus, the oldest, ran a mortgage brokerage and visited on holidays, the ones he couldn't monetize. He was a man who'd never in his life read past a signature line. He skimmed contracts for a living and called it expertise. Dana called Grandpa's landline once a month for 11 minutes, then posted about family being everything. Paul, the youngest, at least seemed ashamed about it, which in my family passed for virtue. Grandpa was, by all appearances, a broke, stubborn widower, drove a '91 pickup, reused foil, kept a coin jar on the kitchen counter, and made me roll quarters with him on Tuesdays like it was church. But some details didn't fit. Remember these. Detail 1. Mail came for something called Kestrel Holdings. When I asked, he said, junk, and fed it to the wood stove. Detail 2. 2 summers before he died, this 84-year-old man mixed mortar in a wheelbarrow and re-bricked one wall of his own basement. I begged him to hire someone. He said, a man should close his own doors. Detail 3. Carol, Grandpa's lady friend, 70 years old, sharp-eyed, always, down in that basement doing laundry. My family called her the gold digger. I'm ashamed to say I half believed them. At the funeral, while everyone hugged, Carol stood in the back texting someone. I remember thinking how cold. Remember that text. It matters more than almost anything else I'm going to tell you. And one more thing. Grandpa had a phrase. He'd say it rolling quarters, say it watching the news, said it the day he re-bricked that wall, wiping mortar off his hands. Houses burn. Land remembers. I thought it was old man poetry. The will reading was on a Tuesday, in a conference room with bad coffee. The lawyer, Mr. Abernathy, read fast. To Marcus, the house on Corbin Street and a fourplex on Delancey Avenue. To Dana, the lake house on Mirror Lake. To Paul, the hunting cabin, and $180,000 cash. Cash bequests to all 3. A combined estate, real property included, of roughly $2.3 million. To my granddaughter, Nora Ellis, the enclosed envelope, and all contents within the structure of the basement wall of 44 Corbin Street. Silence. Then Dana snorted. Then Marcus started laughing, really laughing, wiping his eyes, and said the sentence. Paper for the paper girl. 6 years of playing nurse, and you got exactly what you were worth. My mother, and this is the part that still burns, looked at the table and said nothing. I walked out to my car holding one manila envelope while my family divided millions, and I sat in the parking lot and I did not cry, because crying felt like agreeing with them. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. I opened the envelope at my kitchen table at midnight. Grandpa's handwriting. Dated 2 years before his death. It started like this. Nora, by now the reading is over. If Marcus behaved as I expect, he called you the paper girl and said you got what you were worth. Don't hate him for it. He learned to count money before he learned to count people. I made the same mistake once. I dropped the letter. Word for word. Written 26 months before he said it. Are you understanding what I'm telling you? My grandfather knew his family so precisely that he scripted their cruelty in advance, which meant everything about that will, the amounts, the insult, the envelope, was designed. The letter continued. Check the basement wall, the one I built. Bring a hammer, and bring your patience. You have 30 days from the reading to finish what I've started, or everything I built goes to strangers. 30 days, Nora, not 31. And when you're ready to understand why, ask the woman you all misjudged. 30 days. Here's the part I've never told anyone. My first feeling wasn't excitement, it was fear. Because I suddenly remembered watching an old man lay brick with shaking hands, refusing help, and I realized I'd been living 6 years inside a plan I couldn't see the edges of. There was just one problem. The basement wall was in the house on Corbin Street, and the house on Corbin Street now belonged to Marcus. I called Marcus the next morning and asked, politely, for 1 hour in Grandpa's basement. He said, sentimental tour? Sure, $500. He wasn't joking. Then he told me why it had to be soon. He'd already listed the house. Cash buyer, 21-day close, and the buyer, a developer, planned to gut it to the studs. Gut it. Including the basement. So now I had 2 clocks. Grandpa's 30 days, and Marcus's 21. I paid the $500. I'm not proud of it. He met me at the door, watched me like I was a shoplifter, and gave me 40 minutes, not 60. I found the wall, Grandpa's wall, mortar lines slightly crooked, and I ran my hand across it and heard it. A knock in the center came back hollow. Marcus called down the stairs. Time's up, Nora. Some of us have closings. I drove home shaking. I'd figure something out. I had time. I was wrong again. That Friday, I drove past Corbin Street and saw a dumpster in the driveway. In the rain, Marcus's crew was throwing my grandfather's life into it. His workbench, split in half. His tools, Grandma's cedar chest, lid cracked, sitting in a puddle, and on top of the pile, in a Ziploc bag like garbage, Grandpa's pocket watch, broken since 1987. He'd promised it to me. When it's running again, it's yours. And we never got it fixed, and there it was in the rain. I climbed into that dumpster in my work clothes, and I dug it out with my bare hands while Marcus's contractor watched from the porch. And something in me went very quiet and very cold. Understand this, because it's the hinge of the whole story. Up until that dumpster, I wanted fairness. After the dumpster, I wanted justice. Those are not the same thing. That night, someone knocked on my door. It was Carol. She stood on my porch holding 2 things: a key to the Corbin Street house and a thermos of coffee. He said you'd take longer than you should to come find me, she said. He was right. He was right about everything. Get your coat. Carol, Marcus owns that house. If I read your letter again, girl. The contents within the structure of the basement wall are yours. Legally. Named in the will. Marcus owns the house. He does not own what's inside that wall, and he can't sell it, and Abernathy will back you. Now, do you want to keep being polite, or do you want to keep your grandfather's promise? We went at 2 a.m., legally entitled, morally certain, and still terrified. She held the flashlight. I swung the sledgehammer. And I want you to sit in this moment with me, because I earned it. The first brick giving way, dust in my teeth, my grandfather's crooked mortar cracking open like a seal on a letter. Behind the wall was a cavity, dry and clean. Inside, a fireproof steel box, heavy as sin, and stacked beside it, wrapped in oilcloth, album after album of coins. His real collection, gold eagles, uncirculated Morgans, decades of it, later appraised at just under $400,000. And I understood, kneeling there, that the quarters we rolled on Tuesdays had been the decoy. He'd been teaching my hands the weight of the real thing, without ever showing it to me. Taped to the lid of the steel box, in its own plastic case, set apart from all the rest, like it meant something different. A single 1963 Franklin $50. Inside the box, bearer bonds. The old kind, payable to whoever holds them. Bank statements. A small brass key stamped 1/18. A USB drive labeled in Grandpa's block letters, for when they ask why, and a stack of deeds. I started reading them by flashlight, and my hands went numb. Parcel. Delancey Avenue. The land under Marcus's fourplex. Owner. Kestrel Land Trust. Parcel. Mirror Lake. The land under Dana's lake house. Kestrel Land Trust. Parcel. The cabin land. Kestrel. Parcel. 44 Corbin Street itself. Kestrel. 11 parcels. My grandfather, the man in the '91 pickup, had spent 30 years quietly buying the ground. He gave my siblings the houses. The land underneath every single one of them was held in trust. For me. I sat down on that basement floor and laughed until I couldn't breathe. And Carol let me, and for one entire minute I thought I'd won. 1 minute. Then Carol handed me the trust document and pointed at page 6, and the floor dropped out. 2 clauses. Clause 1. The Kestrel Land Trust would terminate 30 days after the will reading unless the named beneficiary appeared before the trust's attorney, in person, with the original trust instrument, kept in safe deposit box 1118, and formally accepted. If I missed it, a standing purchase agreement, executed automatically. Every parcel would sell to Halverson Development, the same developer buying Corbin Street to gut it. Grandpa hadn't just left me a fortune, he'd left me a fuse. Clause 2. The bank required a co-signature to open box 1118. From the trust protector. Name of trust protector. C. Alvarez. I looked up at Carol. Carol Alvarez. The gold digger, who spent 6 years doing laundry in a basement with a hollow wall she helped him brick shut. Who was texting at the funeral. Texting Abernathy, I'd learn. Confirming the reading date so the 30-day clock would be set correctly. You were never his girlfriend, I said. Paralegal. 31 years. Before I retired. And his friend. He didn't trust lawyers with the truth, and he didn't trust family with the money. He trusted me with the plan, and you with the reason. She looked at the broken wall. I begged him to just tell you. He said no. He said if you knew, you'd stop showing up as yourself and start showing up as an heiress. He needed 6 years of Sundays he could believe. That's why I never knew. That's why she never spoke. Every kindness I'd given, he'd counted. Every one my siblings withheld, he'd counted those too. There's more, Carol said. The USB. You should hear it before you decide what kind of person to be about this. I thought I already knew everything my family was capable of. I was wrong a 3rd time. This was the worst one. 19 days left. We opened box 118 on a gray Monday morning. The trust instrument was there, and Carol played me the recordings from the USB in the bank's little private room. Recording 1, 8 months before Grandpa died, after his 2nd stroke, while he was slurring and half-sedated in a rehab ward. Marcus and Dana, in his hospital room, sliding papers under his hand. Power of attorney. Marcus's voice, gentle as a salesman. Just sign, Pop. It's for the insurance. The same words. The same words. Marcus used on ME that month, when he had me sign hospital paperwork that I now held in my hands. A waiver, surrendering my authority over Grandpa's care decisions. The signature wasn't forged. It was mine. I'd signed my grandfather away in a hallway because my big brother told me it was routine. Recording 2. Marcus on the phone with a realtor, while Grandpa was still alive in that ward, pricing the Corbin Street house. He's not coming home. Trust me. Grandpa came home, and Grandpa, it turns out, had a nanny cam in a bookshelf and a paralegal in the basement, and he'd heard all of it. The will I watched being read wasn't bitterness, it was a verdict. I signed the acceptance in Abernathy's office with 4 days to spare. It was Thursday. I'd had until Monday. And when the ink dried, Abernathy slid one last envelope across the desk. He said, "This one comes only after you sign." His exact words were, "She has to choose it before she understands it." Inside, a yellowed 1963 deed and a photograph of 2 young men in front of a farmhouse, Grandpa and his brother Walt. In 1963, Walt got their dying father to sign the family farm over, a signature by a sickbed, witnessed by nobody honest, and evicted his own brother from the land he was born on. Grandpa left with a truck, a toolbox, and a $50 from that year in his pocket, and he swore something. The first parcel the Kestrel Land Trust ever purchased, in 1994, anonymously, at a foreclosure auction, was the ground under Walt's failed farm. Houses burn, land remembers. It was never poetry, it was a promise. He wasn't hiding money from my siblings. He was handing me the exact weapon that was once used against him, a signature, a deed, a piece of ground, and trusting me to hold it better than Walt did. Then I did the thing his first letter asked of me in its final line, the thing I still argue with myself about. Give them one door, Nora. Just one. What they do with it is theirs. I called Marcus and offered him the door. I didn't mention the trust. I said, "Before the family dinner Saturday, tell me the truth about the hospital papers you had me sign. Tell Mom what you and Dana did in that rehab ward. Do that, and whatever happens next happens quietly, in a lawyer's office, like family." He laughed. Second time in this story my brother laughed at me. "Nora, you got a letter. You're a footnote in this family with a grudge and a Honda. Come to dinner, eat the food my inheritance paid for, and let it go." I gave him a door. He chose the wall. Saturday. Dana's lake house on Mirror Lake. The celebration dinner. 22 members of my family around my grandmother's oak table, which Dana had taken along with everything else. Aunt Ruthie, 79, the only one who'd hugged me at the reading, patted the chair beside her. Marcus stood, raised his glass, looked directly at me, and delivered his toast. To Grandpa Eli, who finally did the math on who in this family was worth what. Glasses up. Laughter. My mother laughed too. And this is the moment from the thumbnail. Freeze it with me. I stood up at the head of my grandmother's oak table, in the lake house my sister inherited, and I held up a single sheet of paper so the whole room could see the county stamp. 22 faces. 1 deed. He did do the math, I said. Let me show you his work. I laid them down one at a time, like cards. This is the deed to the land under this lake house, Dana. It's mine. Slide. This is the land under your fourplex, Marcus, and under Corbin Street, which, by the way, you can stop trying to sell, because your buyer backed out this morning. Halverson doesn't buy houses on ground they can't own. Ask me how I know what Halverson wants. Slide. The cabin land, Paul. Slide. 11 parcels. Kestrel Land Trust. Grandpa spent 30 years buying the ground, while you were pricing his furniture. You inherited the houses. I inherited the ground they're standing on. Silence like a held breath. Marcus was still smiling. The smile of a man whose mind hadn't caught up. Then it did. I watched it happen. His wine glass didn't drop. Worse, he set it down and missed the table, and it shattered, and he didn't look at it. Dana's hand went out behind her for a chair that wasn't there. My mother said, "That's not." Eli didn't have, and stopped, because Abernathy was standing in the doorway, next to Carol. The ground leases, Abernathy said pleasantly, were recorded against the titles decades ago. They run with the land, so when you inherited the houses, you inherited the leases. It was all in the title reports. Nobody ordered one. He glanced at Marcus, almost kindly. You of all people, Mr. Ellis. They expire March 1st. Renewal terms are set by the trustee. He nodded at me. That's her. You can't. Marcus started. You're not homeowners, Marcus, I said. You're my tenants. And then, because he opened his mouth to say the word lawsuit, I took out my phone and played 11 seconds of a recording. Just sign, Pop. It's for the insurance. His own voice, in a hospital room, filled his sister's dining room in front of his wife, his mother, and 22 witnesses. Contest anything, I said, and the rest of it plays in probate court. Undue influence has a funny way of changing direction. Aunt Ruthie, bless her forever, broke the silence. She looked around the table, picked up her fork and said, "Well, I always liked her," and went back to her pie. Here's the justice, exactly as I wrote it into the leases, because Grandpa raised me to be surgical, not cruel. Dana. Market ground rent. $4,100 a month. Reducible to $1 a year the day she returned Grandma's ring, the cedar chest, and this oak table to the family home. She returned them in 9 days. Paul. $1 a year. Effective immediately. Because Paul came to my apartment the morning after the dinner, sat on my steps and said, "I knew about the hospital." I said nothing. "I'm sorry," and cried like the funeral, which was the only honest crying anyone in my family had done. Mercy isn't weakness, it's aim. Marcus market rent on the fourplex, $8,400 a month, with one path back to $1. He must rebuild Grandpa's workshop at Corbin Street himself. Not hire it, build it. Every bench, every shelf, with his own soft mortgage broker hands, to the satisfaction of the trust protector, Carol Alvarez, who inspects on Sundays and accepts no cowardly toast. He's out there most weekends now. He doesn't speak to me. He builds. And the cost, because there's always a cost. My mother hasn't called me since the dinner. She chose him. She always had. And the illusion that she hadn't was the last expensive thing I owned. I also lost the version of Grandpa who was just a poor, stubborn man who loved my burnt toast. And some nights I miss that simpler man more than the mastermind. 6 years of Sundays were real. But I'll never fully know if I was his granddaughter or his proof. I bought Corbin Street back from Marcus at a fair price. I live there now. The wall in the basement is still open. I'm leaving it that way. On the mantel upstairs sits the pocket watch, repaired, finally, ticking, next to a 1963 $50. And most mornings there are 2 coffee cups drying by the sink, because Carol comes by, and family, it turns out, is whoever kept showing up. So here's my question, and I genuinely don't know the answer. Making Marcus rebuild that workshop with his own hands, was that mercy, or was it a leash? Is a punishment you can work your way out of forgiveness, or just a longer sentence? Half of me says I gave him a road back. The other half knows I enjoy watching him walk it. I still don't know if I did the right thing. Most nights I think I did. If someone in your family carried everything and got thanked with nothing, send them this. They'll know why. And if you believe the quiet ones in the family are usually the ones holding the ground everyone else is standing on, subscribe. I've got more walls to open. Because houses burn, land remembers.